If you're thinking about moving to the Oregon coast, you're probably going to want to know what the food restaurant situation's like. Today I'm gonna grab some lunch in one of the top restaurants along the Oregon coast. Let's see what they have to eat. Hey everyone, welcome back to Living on the Oregon Coast. I'm your host, Seth Marchant, licensed real estate broker in the state of Oregon and Washington. In this channel, we show you what it's like to eat, sleep, play, all the pros and cons, the cost of living, drone tours, driving tours, all sorts of different videos that really give you an idea of what it's like to live along the Oregon coast. We've got videos that cover all the major towns on the Oregon coast. We've got over 100 videos. And if you are familiar with this channel, then you probably know that we don't do a whole lot of content that actually covers things like food or restaurants. And the reason why that is because the content on our channel is mostly just geared to give people an idea of what they need to know to actually make the move and to live along the Oregon coast. And for most people that are choosing to move to the Oregon coast, restaurants don't have a direct impact in where people would live. But just about everybody does care about what the food in the restaurant situation is like. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in this video, and a little bit about the area that I'm in. Now, if you're not familiar with the Oregon coast, a larger town along the Oregon coast is about 10,000 people. There's about half a dozen towns that are of that size along the Oregon coast, and there's a lot of little towns that are literally just hundreds of people. There's a handful of defunct towns along the Oregon coast where there's really not much at all going on. So if you're used to a larger, a major metropolitan area, 10,000 people is going to feel relatively small to you. So a 10,000 person town, doesn't have a ton of resources. A lot of that is driven by tourism. So I've seen over the years, a lot of decent restaurants along the Oregon coast that weren't able to survive. Whereas if living in Oregon my whole life, if you go into the valley, like Portland or Corvallis, Salem, Eugene, anywhere towards the valley, there's tons of restaurants that there's no shortage of complaints or bad reviews, and those restaurants seem to stay open forever. So it is more difficult for restaurants to sustain along the Oregon coast. They just don't have the resources. But with that being said, there are a lot of really great restaurants along the Oregon coast, and today I am at Tidal Raves in Depoe Bay, which is in Lincoln County. Now, I know I said at the beginning of this video that I was at one of the top restaurants along the Oregon coast. That is subjective. There is no list or some place where you can find rankings for all the restaurants along the Oregon coast, at least that I know of. So what I'm talking about is more just purely anecdotal. If you're a part of any groups online like Facebook or Reddit that talk about the Oregon coast, a common question that comes up is, what's your favorite restaurant? Or I have some big thing coming up, an anniversary or something like that, and I want to know about a nice restaurant that I can take that special someone. So this is something that people talk about a lot. So I do hear these anecdotes a lot, and there's definitely about a half a dozen restaurants that you hear come up time and time again. And Tidal Raves is one of those restaurants that I probably hear the most, if not maybe the most. So let's take a look at the menu. Probably actually take a screenshot of that and post it for you on the side. Probably be a little bit easier for you to see. So as you might imagine, we've got a lot of quintessential dishes: crab cakes, fish tacos, crab mac is really big along the Oregon coast. And looking at this menu, if you're wondering about prices, this restaurant online is rated to about $20 to $30 per person. I would say it probably falls right in line with the rest of the coast. You don't really have really expensive restaurants along the Oregon coast. And when I say really expensive, I'm talking about more like $50 to $100 per person. Those like expensive steakhouses that all the major metropolitan areas have, like an El Gaucho, for example. So these prices, I think, fall in line with most of the rest of the Oregon coast, at least for what you're getting. So these prices, to my eye, don't appear especially high. We all know food prices have gone up significantly over the last couple of years. But what really makes this place so special? Well, the first thing, and I can really appreciate this, of course, being in real estate, is location, location, location. That is the most common phrase in real estate because location is more important than anything. And when people come to the Oregon coast, or people just that live at the Oregon coast, whether you're a traveler or you dwell here, people like to eat their food and look at the ocean. And I'm actually sitting outside at one of their picnic tables. I have some food to go here that we'll take a look at in just a moment. They don't serve you outside, so if you want to eat outside, you do have to get food to go. The inside is really great, though. I'll show you a picture of it here in just a moment. But pretty much panoramic views from the inside of the ocean. And this is a great spot to have some ocean views as well, because we are in Depoe Bay. Depoe Bay is known for its whale watching. There's all sorts of whale watching that just happens right out here. There's fishing charters, whale watching charters. So a lot of people, a lot of boats out here that you can charter, but you don't necessarily have to. You can see the whales just from right here. The 101 is just right behind me. It goes right through town. I actually saw quite a few whales last week in Seaside Cove. So if you're not a whale person, if you haven't looked for them before, they're actually not that hard to find. You don't typically need binoculars, but here in Depoe Bay, they come exceptionally close to the shoreline. So that's part of the big draw here. And one thing that also makes Depoe Bay unique is the waves actually crash right up against the 101. Sometimes the surf splashing the cars that are driving along the road. And Depoe Bay is a very small town, about 1,500 people. It is literally a one stoplight. There's literally one light here, a type of a town, but you're right in between Newport and Lincoln City, both having about 10,000 people. If you count some of the smaller unincorporated areas like Lincoln City has, you're gonna get maybe closer to 15,000 people. So, and Lincoln City is maybe just about 10, 15 minutes north of us. Newport is just 10, 15 minutes to the south of us. There's not much here. So if you live in Depoe Bay, you're probably gonna be doing your shopping in either Newport or Lincoln City. But this restaurant location is about as good as it gets. So that's the first thing, location, of course. The next thing, service. This place is notorious for having excellent service. And I don't know about you or how you feel about the food service industry, but I definitely feel for these people since lockdowns. A lot happened with restaurants. This was also a time, if you follow labor statistics, this was a time that a lot of people in this industry decided to make a transition and move along to something else, leaving a lot of roles open, bringing a lot of new people in. And so with that, it feels like the service that you probably commonly get isn't quite what it used to be. So it's always nice to have a place where you can have some good, consistent service. I would say in general, actually, the Oregon coast, especially compared to the Valley, which is where all the population is in Oregon, Portland down to Eugene, I would say that the service at the coast actually is pretty good, maybe slightly above average, or at least compared to the Valley and Oregon. So you have an excellent location, excellent service, and then of course, it's restaurant food. How is the food here? Well, I have some crab cakes that I'm going to try here. So this place is, of course, renowned for the food, and I'll share with you one dirty little secret about the Oregon coast. Maybe some of you know this, and I'm not privy to all this, but I'm not privy to all the restaurants and where they get their food, but I do know people in the industry, and I can tell you that not all of the seafood that you're eating along the Oregon coast actually comes from the Oregon coast. You might assume that, and in some places, on some menus, it's gonna tell you, it's gonna say local rockfish, might say local halibut. So there's certain things you'll expect to get around here, like crab, oysters, clams. The halibut might come from up north. But other things like shrimp, for example, shrimp's probably not coming from around here. So if you want fresh seafood, if that's something that you're coming here for, you might want to be a little bit discerning as to where you go to find that. Just south of here, just south of Newport, there's a fish market. It's called South Beach Fish Market. It's probably one of the top fresh seafood places along the Oregon coast, for sure one of the top in Lincoln County. Okay, let's try one of these crab cakes. It's excellent. Very, very good. Okay. Now, the other thing about food around this area, I don't know if I want to name drop. Whenever I do that, people are always going to say, well, why didn't you mention this place, or why didn't you mention that place? I don't know if I can give you a list, but what I can tell you is that for the area that I'm in Lincoln County, and that's Yachats to Newport. Yachats is that town where it's really hard to pronounce, spelled Y-A-C-H-A-T-S. Sometimes people pronounce it like Yachats or something like that. Yachats, Waldport, Newport, Depoe Bay, Lincoln City. Those are the big towns in Lincoln County. That stretch right there probably gives you a greater density of more popular restaurants. Again, I'm just going by anecdotes of things that I see online, than probably anywhere else along the Oregon coast. We do also have the Newport Wine and Seafood Fest that takes place once a year, every year in February, where a lot of local seafood providers and wineries, and there's a handful of other things there as well, all come together on the south side of Newport, down by South Beach, down by where the Newport Aquarium is. And it's a Thursday to a Sunday festival. There's a couple of really big tents, and just a bunch of seafood and wine, and there's buses that will shuttle you around, so you don't have a bunch of drunk people driving around town Thursday through Sunday while this event is taking place. If you are interested in seafood, I would highly recommend that. But if you are somebody that is a little bit more interested in the culinary scene along the Oregon coast, Lincoln County is probably the best place for you. Things get pretty sparse when you go down south. A lot of choices up north in Clatsop County as well, so it's going to be pretty close between the two. And I think that one reason why that is this is a very vibrant area. Like I said, there are some defunct towns along the Oregon coast that just don't have the local economy or the tourism to support anything. And Lincoln City, they get a lot of tourism with people coming from Portland. Newport is getting a lot of tourism from people coming from Corvallis. It's just about an hour from Corvallis to get to Newport. And then Yachats, Waldport, and where I'm at in Depoe Bay, everything in between. This is a very, very vibrant area. Another thing I tell you about this area too that you might not know if you're not familiar with this area is this area actually has a lot of really, really great beaches. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, it's the Oregon coast, isn't there like beaches everywhere? Yes and no. It's all about access, and then what are you getting with your beach? So along the northern Oregon coast, you're gonna find a lot of large, unobstructed, sandy beaches, from Rockaway Beach, Manzanita, Cannon Beach, Seaside. Gearhart to Warrenton is about 8 miles of unobstructed beach. Whereas on the southern Oregon coast, you have those dramatic rock formations. You have like the more common, like big haystack type of rocks. You don't have as many sandy beaches. And the places that you do have sandy beaches, or long stretches of sandy beaches, would be like around Coos Bay or Florence, where all of the dunes are. Those aren't super accessible. If you're living in Coos Bay, all of the sandy beaches, your access is maybe 15, 20 minutes away, might be 30 minutes away for some people in Coos Bay. Same thing with Florence, except you're actually closer to the beach in Florence, but the Siuslaw River that goes right through Florence, heading east to west, once it passes town, and you can check out, I actually did a drone video of this just a couple weeks ago if you want to see what this looks like. The river heads north, and so you've got the river sort of paralleling the ocean and the 101, and there's only one bridge that goes over the river, so there's no quick access to the sandy beaches for a lot of people in Florence. There's a handful of places that you can go, whereas in Lincoln County, from Yachats to Lincoln City, especially through Lincoln City, the 101 goes through all of these towns, and the beaches are right off of the 101. And there's a lot of variation in the beaches here. There's a lot of beaches that are long and sandy, but you also have rock formations, streams, tide pools, caves. So the beaches here, kind of closer to Central Coast in Lincoln County, kind of give you a little bit a mix of the northern Oregon coast with a lot of unobstructed sandy beaches, but a lot of the rock formations and tide pools and caves and things like that kind of make each beach a little bit unique. So if I could say another thing about this area, you've got some of the most accessible, some of the best beaches along the entire Oregon coast. Okay, how about the real estate market? Given that I am a real estate broker, and myself and the other person that you see on this channel, Paul Clem, we've helped people buy homes, relocate, buy second homes, investment properties from Brookings to Astoria and everything in between. We know these areas well. We do cover some areas more frequently than others, but one of the areas that we do tend to spend a lot of our time is in Lincoln County. And Lincoln County, I think for me, gives people the most diversity of options in different types of neighborhoods. There's a lot of different types of neighborhoods. Lincoln City and Newport have a totally different vibe, even though they're very, very close to each other. And you also have a lot of options in homes. Your average price points are gonna be, it's hard to give an average, but I'll just say around 500. It's hard to give an average because there's a lot of unaverage homes here, especially like in Depoe Bay. There's a lot of homes that are back up, new builds that are back up in the hills that have panoramic water views that drive up those averages. So if you're just looking for a home that maybe doesn't have something that's gonna make it more valuable, like water views, that's of average age and average size, you might even be closer to like $450,000 or $400,000. If you want to have water views, something like you see like right behind me, it's pretty tough to find something that's a single family home that's over 1,000 square feet, that's not really old, that's under $600,000. So if you want something like 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet at least, something in that neighborhood or more with some water views, you're usually looking closer to like $700,000 or $800,000. So the real estate market's really gonna vary. There's a lot of old homes here. There's not a ton of new construction here, but there is some, and then of course, everything in between. So I think between all the great restaurants, the amenities, if you're worried about healthcare, there is a major hospital in both Lincoln City and Newport. So if you're here in Depoe Bay, you'll be 15-20 minutes in either direction if you have a preference for one or the other. And you are gonna have pretty much all the shopping that you might want. So major grocery stores here, health food stores. Occasionally you might have to go to the valley for something like a piece of furniture or something like that. But for the most part, this area is not so small that you're gonna have to travel far away for shopping. So I hope that gives you a better feel for Lincoln County and Tidal Raves, this restaurant, and the culinary scene around this area. If you have more questions about moving to the Oregon coast, again, I'm a licensed real estate broker, helped a lot of people relocate here or buy second homes here. You can call, text, email. You can find all of the contact information in the description below. If you're watching from TV, you can hit that QR code. That'll take you to our website. You can find all of our contact information there. And if you want to see more videos like this, of course, make sure and subscribe to this channel. And until next time, take care, everyone.